The Nestworks C500 is not the same machine I purchased on Kickstarter in December 2025. Nestworks has done what every other Kickstarter company is notorious for doing, and that's making significant changes to the machine after the Kickstarter's over. The only difference? Nestworks has knocked it out of the park with the new update of this machine. Now that we've seen this machine in public, let's look at some of the changes. So these are some clips from the Stranger Parts YouTube channel when he visited the factory back in December. This video actually is what semi-caused me to back this machine. So let's take a look. So this machine doesn't look like anything spectacular. It looks like a standard cheap gantry router at this point. You've got billet aluminum uprights, billet aluminum frame, and what looks like 6mm bolts that hold the gantry to the frame. This is not going to be rigid at all. And then you've got these super tall ball screws on this very thin aluminum. This thing, while it looks better than most on the market at the time, this thing's still not great. And another thing that I didn't really love at the beginning is this chip tray. So this chip tray is asking to build chips up. We're going to talk about that later. And then you just got, this thing just does not look industrial at all, which is okay for the price we paid. I was willing to give it a shot. It does look beefier than most desktop routers. But anyway, let's look at the new design. So we received this update, the first picture of the new casting of the machine, on April 16th. So this is a die-cast frame. It's a two-piece die-cast. You've got the gantry and you've got the bottom frame. One thing that I don't think was very clear, and I actually just noticed it while I was digging up stuff to record this video, you don't have a moving gantry anymore. You have a moving Y-axis table. And I'm willing to bet, and I don't know this for sure, but I bet there's only a single ball screw in the center of the table now, which gets the ball screws lower, probably more rigid. Anyway, that's beside the point. Look at the hardware that mounts, I'm going to say the gantry even though it doesn't move anymore. The hardware that bolts the vertical uprights to the frame is significantly beefier. This entire frame is significantly beefier. And also, one thing we're going to talk about more, this plastic tray that goes inside the frame now, since the frame was probably CAD designed and you could injection mold this and drop it in there, this is going to help with cleaning of the machine drastically. So, the number one update on this machine that I think will help it significantly is the new frame design. This also increased the weight of the machine. If you know anything about machines, the heavier the weight, most likely the more rigid they are. I think this is a plus all over the board. Plus the die-cast aluminum enables them to get their manufacturing costs down a little bit. That might have been why they done this, but they also made way more improvements than just making the machine cheaper. So the next thing that changed is the spindle. This is the old machine with the ER11 collet. And basically the spindle just spins up and crams a collet on there and hopes that it threads on. I know there are routers and things with this type of tool changer. I didn't particularly love this. And also, I'm just scrolling through what was on Kickstarter. You'll notice right here the spindle was offset from the housing, so you automatically lose X-axis travel that's wasted by the probe being on the left side of the housing. This is something that they also changed. So we got this update on the same day as the casting update, which shows a different spindle clamp design from the ER collet. There were rumors that this was the same DGZ60E collet that the Make-Era machines used, but at the time we didn't know. This has been confirmed to be correct, and this is also going to be a lot more reliable, and in my opinion, if you go to do a manual tool change with an ER collet, you're going to have to juggle 2 wrenches. They've already shown us that the spindle drawbar can be activated via a touch screen on the control that says clamp and unclamp. So you have basically a push button manual tool change instead of wrestling 2 wrenches with an ER collet. And also the reliability of automatic tool changes is going to be significantly better than the old ER style. There is one downside to this though, and I also want to give a modern picture of the spindle since the machine's been seen in public. So this is a close-up of the spindle. You'll notice the spindle is on the center line of the housing, which gives you the travel back. This would be your coolant nozzles. I'm assuming one is coolant, one is air blast maybe. I may be wrong. I'm not really sure. They haven't confirmed that. And something else, we also got a ruby-tipped probe. To my knowledge, there is no other budget CNC machine that's this size that gets a ruby-tipped probe. Now, honestly, I would prefer to see this probe mounted in the spindle, but maybe I'm a little picky here. It's okay. This is going to work, and they say it's really repeatable. I'm not really sure. I haven't touched it in person. It does look to be high quality, though, and better than the original probe. So this is the DGZ-60E collet, also used on the Make-Era machines. So this collet will thread up in the spindle, which is it's tightened by this nut right here, which you would tighten it in the spindle, and then it would clamp and unclamp the tool. Now, if you're paying attention, you already know one major difference between this and an ER collet in the tool changer. You could have tools with different shank diameters with an ER collet. You just load the collet with that inner diameter with that specific tool in the tool changer. With this, all the tools have to be the same shank size if you want to run automatic. Otherwise, you would have to manually pull the collet out of the spindle and it unthreads, so it takes time. Or there's something else. Make-Era does the same thing. I'm not totally sold on this yet. I'm not really sure how much run out this is going to add. But anyway, let's say you had a 6mm collet in the spindle and you had a 6mm tool in the spindle. Say you need to go change to a 4mm tool. Instead of changing the collet in the spindle, you would load the 4mm tool up with one of these adapters. Like I said, they appear to be ground. We don't know how much run out this is going to add. So in automatic mode, all of your tools have to have the same shank diameter, and this really, really limits your tool selection. But on the other hand, the max diameter, and this is based on science, the way the ER spindle is designed, the max diameter tool you could have is a 7mm with the ER collet spindle. Make-Era, they don't necessarily make this, but there are people that have ran an 8mm collet in the Make-Era spindle, which is the same DGZ-60E, which means we can run 8mm tools in the C500. So larger tools, small face mills, anything that's a reduced shank, the smaller shank, the less tool you have to pick from. So us being able to step up into that 8mm shank, I think is critical. And I think it outweighs the disadvantage of having to use these reducers. We'll see. Only time will tell. So the next thing that changed is chip collection. This is another piece from the Kickstarter. They call it a dust box, but in reality, this is like a chip pan. And if you see what I see, if you use coolant and you had chips build up in here, I'm clumsy. I'm going to fill this thing up with coolant and I'm going to dump it out on accident and it's going to go all over the floor. I'm going to be super mad. So what was their solution? Their solution were chip augers. Before we saw pictures of this was just a text that said, hey, we're going to add augers to this machine. And to be completely honest, I had no idea what this was going to look like. But this is killer. So we've already talked about this, but this plastic pan that goes inside the machine slopes everything toward the augers, which is already killer. Even if it didn't have augers, if it all goes to one place, you could scoop it out. But it has augers. So look at this example of aluminum chips. This thing is just piled full of aluminum chips, and this is one of the downfalls of like the Make-Era machine. While it is fully enclosed, there's no way to get the chips out of it. So you have to pause and either vacuum it out or blow it out all over the place. This thing, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, also has air nozzles to blow the chips off the plastic cover into the augers. And then even better, the auger has a discharge chute. All of this is going to ship with the machine. It's like this plastic container that folds up inside the machine. You don't have to use this. This is awesome. So this is a piece out of a user named ModRight, his video. He doesn't mention it very often or very long, but you can see the air nozzles here, here, and here that are going to blow chips down into the augers. You can also see this plastic tray in the back has a generous slope to it to get everything down to the augers. Also, he goes over the augers, which we've already seen, but he shows a little bit more of the discharge port. And this plastic tray is sloped into this. So when you get coolant that builds up in the tray, the coolant just runs out here and runs down in the bin. So theoretically, you could have a chip screen to collect the chips and then let the coolant drain out of the chips into a pan below that. Compared to the old design, this right here is just awesome to me. So we're back to the original video that was almost a year ago. One last thing that I never liked about this machine was the steel table. And not anything about the material. Steel is an excellent material for this. Why did they not use T-slots on this machine? So basically you would have to jog Y backwards, stick your hand up under this table with some sort of nut to fasten your clamps to. I don't really know what they were thinking to begin with, but per everything else in this video, they were thinking about this because guess what? We got a T-slot table in the final machine. So back to the video with the auger just to showcase the T-slot table. So you have T-slots and then you also have these standardized bolts that are used for various accessories like the electric vise, the 4th axis. All of these are laser etched on the production machine table to tell you where to put these. I'm more excited with the T-slots though. The T-slots are going to be so much easier to work with because you're not going to have to stick your hands underneath the moving machine, which actually now would be completely impossible because you've got a ball screw that most likely runs through here with this massive way cover underneath. So all of that would be covered, which is probably why they had to go to T-slots, but I don't really care. I'm glad they went to T-slots. This is so much better. So let's talk utilities on this machine. You're going to have 2 coolant reservoirs as you just saw, and this is Mod Right's video again. Go follow his channel. He probably has more info than I do. So you've got 2 coolant reservoirs, which I'm not sure if you can use the same coolant, if you could use different coolant in each. We're not sure about that. And then you have a central air connection back here and a central power cord. So let's talk about some more dimensional specs. The machine weighs 120 kilograms, which is 264 pounds. I'm not going to convert all the dimensions. Basically, the machine we have confirmed will fit on an 18-inch deep toolbox because the feet are shallower than 18 inches. The machine overall is like 20 inches deep by 24 inches wide, I think. And then like 3 feet tall when you flip the lid open. It's obviously going to be significantly taller. The lid is on a gas strut, which is awesome. So you just kind of flip it open and it uses a gas strut to open all the way up. Super cool design. You can see that you've got status lights on the lid. Not sure what all they're going to use that for, but you know, red is alarm and e-stop, green is run, I would imagine. Not really sure yet. So there's those dimensions. Let's look at the work area dimensions. So before we get there, let's talk about what tools this thing can run. So from Nestworks, they say max tool cutting diameter is 8 millimeter to fit in the tool changer, but max shank is a little over 6 millimeters. I bet you we're going to be able to use an 8 millimeter tool in the tool changer as long as we have an 8 millimeter collet, but I cannot confirm logically if it fits in the tool changer and the collet's in the spindle. It should work. I don't know that. So there's also a little translation issue on some of these things. Max tool overhang really means max tool stick out of the spindle, and max tool length is the overall tool. So that's going to be totally fine. Nothing out of the ordinary there. So let's go over the actual work area. And we'll mention the 4th axis. So here are the work dimensions. Once again, there's a typo here. This is without ATC, but anyway. So they've made it to where you can have the tool changer in the Y direction like this, where it's along the Y, or along the X, depending on what you're doing. So in parts that have really long X travel, you move the tool changer along the X axis to get it out of the way, vice versa with the Y. So you're looking at approximately 8 by 8 as the work area. You can see the work areas here, millimeters and inches, by somewhere around 6 inches tall. You could run a really stubby tool and get right up to 6 inches, but I'm going to say 5.5 and under with standard size tools. So the Z is definitely the limit, but that's pretty typical on milling machines. Pretty generous work area, to be completely honest. So one thing that the tool changer allows you to do, if you use the 4th axis, which I did not pledge the 4th axis, right now they're out of stock. I would like to go back and get the 4th axis at this point, but I may wait until I get the machine. Anyway, so if you have the ATC and the tailstock, you're not going to get much work area. If you take the tailstock off, you're still only going to get 100 millimeters. But if you move the tool changer, there's another base plate that goes on the 4th axis that basically doubles the capacity of the tailstock. You can see the tool changer is along the X axis instead of along the Y. So what comes with the machine? I don't remember if I got the Imperial or the metric tooling set. I don't really care, to be honest, at this point. I can work with either of them. So on the Kickstarter, it says you get a tooling set, you get a random sample material set, which we still don't know what that's going to be, and you also get a work holding, which is just going to be toe clamps, basically. So you get random pieces of stock, toe clamps, and then it looks like we're going to get the collet adapters that I talked about, which would be 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch or 6 millimeter to 3 millimeter. I really wish they would have went 6 to 4 on that, but anyway, doesn't really matter. I don't really remember which one I'm going to get, but you're going to get some collet adapters, and I assume you're only going to get one collet in the spindle, which is going to be a 1/4 inch collet if you got the Imperial version, or a 6 millimeter if you got the metric version. You're going to have to buy the collets separate. They're not very expensive. As I showed, they're like 20 bucks a piece. You don't need collets like you would need ER collets. You really only need 3 sizes of collets, to be honest. So you get that, and then you also get, these are the tools that are going to ship with the machine. So you're going to get a 3 millimeter 2-flute end mill. You're going to get a 6 millimeter 3-flute end mill. Looks like those are 50 millimeters long. You're going to get an engraving bit, which I'm probably not going to use. You're going to get a random thread mill. I'm not really sure why they picked M4. Maybe they have a project that's going to ship with the machine that uses M4 bolts. Not really sure. You're going to get a 2-flute ball nose end mill that is 3 millimeter in diameter. And you're going to get a chamfer mill. So honestly, this is okay. This is going to get you started. You could opt for these. I did not opt for anything. I'm going to kind of build my own tooling list, and if you want a video on that, let me know. This pretty much is going to finish out the video. This is what the machine ships with. Let me know what you guys want to see on the C500. When it arrives, I'm probably going to get this thing in late September, early October. Please let me know what kind of content you want to see on it. I already have a long list of videos that I'm going to make, but if you guys specifically say something, you're going to go to the top of the list. And if you want to see more about the C500 or anything else I do, like and subscribe and let me know what you want to see. Thanks for watching.